victory for Raidable Crest Titans.
Last time out then in the Britpart British Cross Country Championship, the crews faced one of their fastest challenges to date, with a demanding course around the infamous Killer Kilder complex in the north of England. And it would be another dominant performance by Adrian Marfell, leaving him and co-driver Andy Powell in a great position coming into the final round of the championship here in Wales. On to the first day of action then, and there would indeed be good news for Adrian Marfell and Paul Bartleman. They end the day with the lead of the event and with a reasonable advantage in that position as well. There would be no backing off at all though for the pair just yet. Justin Birchall and Andy Powell had been leading the event up until run 3 and had in fact put in what would be the fastest time of the event. But sadly for them, they get a puncture on the 4th run of the day, putting them down into 4th position with a minute lost. Worse was still to come though. Damage caused by that to the suspension would see them retire by the end of the day. Richard and Mason Kershaw weren't going to let Marfell run away with things, that was for sure. The previous champions putting in some good times and improving on them run by run. They end the opening day as a result of those efforts with 2nd place, a handful of seconds to try and find on day 2 to overhaul that victory. Things didn't go to plan though for Andy DiZiulio and Paul Foley. They fitted a new 5.5 litre engine to the car, and although it was much better to drive now, frustratingly for them, they'd break the diff with it on run 3, having to limp back for the rest of the run. Unfortunately, the times taken to get the diff replaced would mean they get to the end of the day without time to complete the final run. They get a maximum, putting them down in 23rd place overall. A puncture on the 2nd run of the day wouldn't be helping the time to Rob Bull and Victoria Vaughan, but they were going well nevertheless, lying in 3rd place at the end of the day on one of the most enjoyable courses they'd driven. Paul Rowlands and Neil Lloyd will be back out in both cars once again, and it would be in the Class 5 car that they make the best of starts, ending the day 4th overall, of course with that leading their class as well. It was a misfire though, holding Colin and Will Gold back a little more than they would have wanted. Worse will be to come later in the day though. They blow the diff, managing to reach the end of the day 5th place overall despite those problems. For Mark Jacks and Adam Nicholson, it would be the lead in Class 10. They were in a good battle for that championship position overall as well, and needed to keep things fast but tidy. So far things going to plan, 6th overall. And fresh from a good result last time out, it will be another good start for Dave and Tony Hooper this weekend. Although the car had other ideas, starting to smoke by the later runs in the day, it would be traced back to a piston ring failure. They had a steady run through the final run of the day and would have the night to contemplate what they could possibly do to keep things going so well into the 2nd day here. Jason Rowlands will be having a bit of an issue at times on the course, the car cutting out briefly and needing a few seconds to start it and get going again. He still manages though to get through to the end of the day in 8th overall, leading Class 13. For Ryan and Darren Cook, it will be 9th. They lose a little time on the 2nd run of the event. Potentially, that could have been a difference in a couple of positions. But for now, it will be 9th overall, 2nd in the class. And rounding out the top 10 at this stage was Scott Whitmore and Tim Farndon. A good, clean start to the event for the pair. The times coming down nicely as well. Not everyone will be having such good luck though. For Aston Cox and Johnny Coonja, it will be a drop from the top of the leaderboard to the bottom. They get a puncture on run 5, followed by some maximum times. Austin Riley and Philip Richards were lacking a bit of confidence in the slippery sections on day 1. These conditions were tough. It had been raining quite a bit in the lead up to the event, so there'd been some standing water and a lot of mud left over as well. They do get to the end of the day though with 12th overall, 3rd in Class 10. This would be a debut trip to this venue for Tom Jones, and unluckily for him, he didn't have a co-driver on day one, so there'd be a lot to remember here at Walters Arena. He was enjoying the challenge though, and be leading the way in Class 16 from 13th place overall. In Class 7, it would be the lead for Benjamin and Rachel Clay. They were going well without any issues to report, chipping away at those times as the day went on. 15th place overall, and that class lead to boot as well. For Jordan Oldbury and Phil Kerfoot, it would be second place in Class 9 for now, the pair making a slightly slower start, losing a few minutes on the opening run of the day, but getting things back on track in the remaining runs. And in Class 3, it would be Ed Cobley and John Tomley leading the way, pushing that Land Rover hard as usual. They'd have a couple of times slightly slower than we probably would have expected and surely that they'd wanted, but they were still going well by the end of the opening day. Electrical problems last time out, you might remember, for Richard Green and Richard Griffiths were thankfully now all sorted. The pair could have a good clean run on the event. That was apart from a puncture on the first run of the day, but apart from that, things looked to be going much better for the pair, lying second in Class 7, 19th overall. In Class 18, it will be the lead for this man, Harry Nicol. Emily Sibley alongside once again. They were putting in some good times as the day went on, and they were enjoying the course here in Wales as well. This might be the top off-road championship in the UK, but enjoyment is still a big part of why we do this. It will be a great start, meanwhile, for Michael Wilson and Ian Letman. They didn't have any issues to report. The feeling in the car was good. No excuses then. They end the day with the Class 4 lead, 21st overall. For Mark Allard and Daniel Jones, it will be third place in Class 7. Their times were consistent and the pace was good from the start. Hopefully they could keep that up going into day 2. An uneventful start to the event for Jonathan Damrell and Nick Blundell was, well, surprisingly just what they wanted, really. They were going well though, lying third in Class 9, 24th overall. No dramas, no reason to be in the headlines today. For Richard Watson and Marvin Reffold, it will be second place in Class 18. A maximum time on the second run of the day would see them dropping down the order a good handful of positions from where they could have been otherwise. Matthew Hall and Gareth Edwards, though, were another crew who should have been a lot higher up on the results. They broke a drive belt on run 2, however, and it will put them down to the bottom of the standings. They'd have a lot to do to try and catch that back up on day 2. For Pat and Becky Masters, it would be second place in Class 3. The pair would lose a couple of minutes in run 4, but they were still going strong, and that's always the main thing, a long way to go on day 2. Jade Pavley and Hannah McKillop were nearing the end of the first season in their championship, and things were still going to plan. The pair lying 28th overall on the leaderboard, leading the class at the end of the day though, importantly. The course suiting the car this weekend for Reese and Sean Matheson, as you can see, taking it in turns to drive, both seeming to get to grips pretty quickly as well behind the wheel. They end the day 29th on the leaderboard, the Class 14 leaders. So we reach the end of day 1. Surprisingly, very little drama and attrition to report throughout the field. Very unusual for any event here at Walters Arena, but the action at the top, as you'd expect, is fierce because, of course, a championship is at stake this weekend. The leaderboard at the top looks like this after day 1. We're on to day 2 of this championship decider then, and the top of the results wouldn't change a great deal, it has to be said. Adrian Marfell and Paul Bartleman still leading the way. The advantage had grown as well, but they still had 3 more runs remaining. They certainly couldn't take anything for granted just yet. Despite a now slightly bigger gap, Richard and Mason Kershaw would still be the ones chasing down Marfell. They may not be in reach of the victory on times alone, but anything can and does happen in this championship. and they surely would want to be there to take advantage of that, if nothing else. Getting held up on the course is always a frustration. That is exactly what happened to Rob Bull and Victoria Vaughan early into day 2. Thankfully for them, the car pulled over as soon as possible in front to let them pass, and they were able to keep hold of 3rd place overall for now. Colin and Will Gould will be climbing up our leaderboard now that the issues have been fixed. They in fact reach as high as 4th place overall at this stage. There's no change in the class though for Paul Rowlands and Neil Lloyd, keeping hold of that lead in Class 5 as well as ending the second morning with 5th place overall. A puncture on a couple of runs this morning would see Mark Jacks and Adam Nicholson dropping a little time, but they were still doing exactly what they needed to do, leading the way in Class 10, ending the morning 6th overall. For Scott Whitmore and Tim Farndon, it will be 7th overall. The time's still looking good, the course drying a little more now in most places. They were able to push as a result in the final runs, and that is exactly what they needed to do. Already in 5th place overall, Paul Rowlands and Neil Lloyd would also end the morning 8th place as well. This time, of course, in the other car, just to avoid any confusion. Things going a little better for the pair in that car now as they move up into the top 10. A long night of deliberating had left Dave and Tony Hooper thinking that they would call it a day. But then, a change of heart on Sunday morning, leaving them deciding to see how long they could keep going for. A chance for a good result in the championship was surely the deciding factor there. It was still going well as well with the lead in Class 9. What's a little smoke between friends? And rounding out our top 10 now will be Ryan and Darren Cook. They drop a little time on the overall results, but they maintain their 2nd in class position for now. Let's take a look just outside our top 10 leaderboard. It will be 11th place overall for Jason Rowlands, leading the way in Class 13, looking like the car was behaving itself a little more now. Things were drying a little on day 2. That means that Austin Riley and Philip Richards could push a little higher. This was only their first season in the car, don't forget, so they were still getting used to where that limit was. Tom Jones, meanwhile, had managed to find himself a co-driver for day 2. Peter Rundle now sat alongside. He'd be able to help with calling the corners once he got used to them himself, of course. They do have a small overshoot, but thankfully, it wasn't much of an issue for the pair. There's no change in Class 7. Benjamin and Rachel Clay continuing to lead the way there from 15th place overall. And indeed a similar story for Jordan Albury and Philip Kerfoot. They end the morning 2nd place in Class 9, 16th overall, just where they'd left off at the end of the opening day of competition. A brief and worrying return of those electrical gremlins for Richard Green and Richard Griffiths that had plagued them at the previous round was a bit concerning, but they do seem to get things sorted pretty quickly, ending the morning 2nd in Class 7, 17th place on the leaderboard. There's no change in the class though for Ed Cobley and John Tomley. They don't have an easy morning, that is for sure, getting 2 punctures in as many runs. Something out there was catching the crews out now and ripping the tyres off the rims, as they were certainly not alone with this issue. Perhaps the mud that paved the way on day 1 was getting swept away, leaving a rock underneath, who knows. Harry Nicol and Emily Sibley will be another with puncture. They knew where they'd got theirs though. They hit a barbed wire fence, immediately puncturing the tyre. They still lead the way in Class 18 though, despite this. And it's a place gained overall for Mark Allard and Daniel Jones. They move up to 21st, but the times in the class would remain pretty similar. 3rd in that for the pair at the end of the morning's runs. Michael Wilson and Ian Letman make a great start to the 2nd day. All going to plan for the pair. They did say that everything was okay and that everything that fell off the car was able to be glued back on. No change either in Class 18 for Richard Watson and Marvin Bethel. They end the morning 2nd in that class. With those problems on day one, meaning that a strong result wasn't looking very likely for Matthew Hall and Gareth Rowlands, it would all be about the seat time and getting used to the car. They were putting in some good times and happy with how things have been going in that respect, surely ruining what could have been. Jonathan Damrell and Nick Blundell, meanwhile, had admitted to losing a lot of confidence in that enforced time off from racing these last couple of seasons. But it was starting to come back more and more with each event. It's a bit like riding a bike, driving these British cross-country racing cars. Sadly, they had now got to the end of the season. Third place in the class for now, though, still going well. No issues to report for Pat and Becky Masters. They still lie second in Class 3, going strongly in the Freelander. And Jade Pavley and Hannah McKillop were doing well to avoid the punctures that many more were picking up along the way. They get through the morning's runs with a few small issues, but nothing that they couldn't iron out before the last runs of the day. It had been a pretty stress-free event for Rhys and Sean Matheson. They get a few runs closer to finishing this event without any issues whatsoever. A clean sheet is rare in this business, with everyone pushing so hard on these challenging courses. So just 3 more runs remaining here in the 2021 Britpart British Cross Country Championship season. And the leaderboard is shaping up like this. Here we go then, the final stages of the event and the final stages, and it will be 28th place overall for Jordan Oldbury and Phil Kerfoot, finishing a lot lower down the order than they would have wanted. They pick up some maximums on the final runs, explaining those positions. It will be a similar story as well for Mark Allard and Daniel Jones, dropping down the order into 27th overall. This weekend, though, had been the best finish so far for Rhys and Sean Matheson. A good result that gives them the class victory in the event and in the championship for their class. The last farewell to the car as well. It will be replaced by a new build in 2022, and we can't wait to see it. Jade Pavley and Hannah McKillop maintain a 100% finishing record in the championship. They cross the line on the final run of the event, meaning a great end to the season out in something new for both of them. They take the Class 2 victory with 25th overall.
It's been such a crazy journey. It happened all because, well, Hannah got me on the team really, and Claire recommended me as well, but it was it's like nothing else I've ever done before, and I feel like so relieved that it's all done, but I just absolutely loved it. I recommend it to anyone. It's not like any tarmac stuff that I've done. I've only ever done tarmac. So apart from like driving around at the rally school or at the forest experience or like driving around the farm when I was little, but this is just like nothing else. And I'm just so happy that the team did such a good job. The car's been brilliant, and the Excite team are just, fingers crossed, over the next few years going to gain momentum and, maybe get to that car. So we'll see.
No change for Pat and Becky Masters. They get to the end of the event second in the class, 24th on the leaderboard, avoiding the ditches this time as well. Jonathan Damrell and Nick Blundell will be more than happy with their finish, both in the event this weekend and in the championship overall as a result. They take second place in Class 9 today, finishing 20th overall in the championship for the season. Matthew Hall and Gareth Rowlands would have to back off a little on the final run of the event. The brakes started to go on the car. They were happy with the times when things were going right though, and they could have been heading towards a top 10 had it not been for yesterday's maximum. No change for Richard Watson and Marvin Reffel. They take second place in Class 18 this weekend with 20th overall. And this weekend we'll see another personal best for the season, this time for Michael Wilson and Ian Letman, giving them a class victory as well as 19th on the leaderboard. They secure themselves 27th place overall in the championship standings. It was a good end to the weekend as well for Harry Nicol with Emily Sibley alongside. That sees them take the class victory from Walters Arena, but also crucially getting second place in the Trophy Championship for this season as well. It is fair to say, though, that the problems were not, by any stretch of the imagination, over for Richard Green and Richard Griffiths. They reach the penultimate run of the event and break a shock absorber, meaning that all was left was a drive for a finish. They end the event after an arduous last run, second place in Class 7, 17th overall. And despite the few issues over the weekend, it will be a welcomed finish for Ed Cobley and John Tomley. They take 16th overall. Class 3 victors in the Land Rover. Meanwhile, this weekend would be a strong end to the season for Benjamin and Rachel Clay. They end the event with the Class 7 victory as well as 14th overall. Some strong times being set by Tom Jones and Peter Rundle get better as the event goes on. They do enough this weekend to take the Trophy Championship as well with this result. There's a bit of a last-minute worry for Ocean Riley and Philip Richards. They leave the fans running on the car after the penultimate run, meaning that they had to bump start the car out for their final run. Thankfully, they didn't store it anywhere out there, but the pressure was certainly on. They end the event third in Class 1, 11th place overall. Dave and Tony Hooper, though, were probably one of the most surprised crews that the car even made it to the end of the event, let alone everyone watching it smoke its way around the challenging course. But 17 litres of oil later, yes, 17, they make it to the finish to take the class victory with 10th place overall. A gamble that paid off as they take a well-deserved 4th place in the championship standings for the season as well. For Ryan and Darren Cook, it will be 9th overall this weekend, doing just enough to take 2nd place in Class 10 as well. This result giving them 7th place in the championship standings for 2021. A nice, trouble-free clean run for Scott Whitmore and Tim Farndon this weekend means the pair end the event with 8th place. They get themselves 9th overall for the championship as well. And despite a bit of an up and down season, it will be a great end for Jason Rowlands, taking the Class 13 victory as well as getting himself an 8th place championship finish in the process. And from one Rowlands to the next, let's hope they're not sharing a mantelpiece. Paul Rowlands, Neil Lloyd alongside, end the event this weekend in 6th. It was actually the place that they'd finished in the championship for the season as well, in this car anyway. Mark Jacks and Adam Nicholson would suffer with diff problems this weekend, which was far from ideal, of course. But they do get to the finish to take the Class 10 victory and 5th overall, enough to net themselves a podium in the championship standings as well, with 3rd. That is a little bit more ideal, I think you'll agree. Back to Paul Rowlands and Neil Lloyd again. If you're confused, well, don't be. They've just got 2 cars. The pair putting some great times in the second of those to end the event 4th overall with a Class 5 victory. But more importantly for them, that results enough for the runner-up spot in the championship for the 2021 season as well. Some last-ditch attrition as we see Richard and Mason Kershaw tumble down the results at the end of the event. In fact, crashing out in the afternoon and going no further. There are issues to report as well for Rob Bull and Victoria Vaughan, brake issues to be exact. A worry at the very least, but the pair also lose a small amount of time, enough to mean that they don't take the 2nd place they looked likely to have. They haven't had problems. 3rd place theirs for now, their best finish in the championship as well. And it was a great comeback drive. Everyone loves one of those, don't they? For Colin and Will Gold. They managed to get that 2nd place this weekend. They weren't quite up mixing it with the winners, but with the problems they'd had over the weekend, they would have surely taken that to begin with. This result, a well-deserved end to a great comeback. But all of that at the end of what a season it has been means it's a dominant victory at the final round for Adrian Marfell and Paul Bartleman. 3 wins from 4 now and a 3rd place to boot this season mean that they walk away as our 2021 British Cross Country champions. A well-deserved end to such a highly competitive season where the winners certainly had to earn that trophy amongst previous champions over some challenging events. So confirmation then of those final results here at Waters Arena. This the final round of the season and a great victory in the championship, and of course on today or this weekend's event for Adrian Marfell and Paul Bartleman.
Yeah, it's been a stressful weekend, and I'm really pleased to have got to the end of the weekend having managed to secure the win and secure the championship. It's been a probably, I don't know, 2 weeks of sleepless nights and the pressure building. So yeah, it's been a lot of work on the car, but yeah, we're just so chuffed to have to win the championship and won it with a win on our home event at Waters Arena. Yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, just some thank yous really, if I can. We need to thank the organising team, because a couple of years ago this didn't look like it was going to happen as a championship, and there's some people that have done a lot of work behind the scenes to make the championship run, and it's made a lot of competitors very happy. They put on what I would say is an excellent series of events. Perhaps would have been even better if they'd have had the first two that weren't cancelled with COVID. So all credit to them. I think they've done a brilliant job. The organisation, the marshals, everybody has done a sterling job of this to make sure that it's running what's been difficult times. So yeah, can't say thanks enough.
It's been tough, but we got there in the end. It's the first notable finish of the season, so we can't complain. We had a problem yesterday. We blew the back diff, but we managed to fight back and get up to second. So can't ask for much more than that.
Oh, it was an awesome event, really enjoyed it. Hell of a good course. I was gutted to miss out on second. We've had brake issues for the last 2 or 3 runs, and Dan and Alec managed to bleed him up and sort him out for the last run, which gave him more confidence to push on. So yeah, still a good result for me, best I've ever had, I think. 3rd overall, so I'm well pleased.
The championship organisers have announced that they won't be continuing to run this series into 2022. But they have certainly provided some high quality entertainment and competition on some of the best off-road racing courses the UK has to offer. The last couple of seasons have been pretty special, and everyone here at Special Stage would like to echo the comments of the competitors in saying a big thank you to the efforts of those behind the scenes in running the series. We wish them all the best in their next projects, including planning for the Welsh Hill Rally. Thank you for watching this final show.